Joining me now is Houston Harwood of the Evansville Courier and Press. He's authored a story on the use of these flock cameras by other agencies. Houston, as always, good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for your time. Well, now I understand you've studied some data on this. Can you tell us a little bit about what type of data you were digging through and what the data shows?
Yeah, so a technology-focused media outlet, 404 Media, published a story in May based on some data that researchers obtained from a police department in Illinois. Mm-hmm. And this data is effectively an audit log of that police department of every search done on their flock cameras mm-hmm. by an outside law enforcement agency who used Flock's data sharing tools to remotely search this police department's cameras in Illinois. So some researchers got a hold of that audit log through a public records request, and this 404 Media outlet did a story on that in May. And what they found is that when an officer conducts a license plate search through these Flock cameras, mm-hmm. they have to provide a reason for the search, typically just one or two words or a case number. Right. What they found when they reviewed all of these incoming nationwide searches to this Illinois Police Department's Flock cameras, what they found is that a large number of those searches, the reason for the search was listed as immigration or immigration violation or ICE. Right. So after we saw that reporting, we decided to file records requests to try to obtain that same flock audit data for agencies in the Evansville area to try to ascertain if that was also the case here.
Mm-hmm. And so, the data you've seen from around here, basically, what has it shown?
Yeah, so, and just to give a little bit more background for
Sure.
people, flock cameras, these are small little solar-powered cameras that you might have seen set up on roadways. There's some,
like on utility poles and that kind of thing.
Yeah. There's some near the intersection of Fulton Avenue and Diamond Avenue. They're all over town.
Right.
And they're in the city, and then Vanderburgh County also operates cameras. The University of Southern Indiana got a couple cameras, mm-hmm. and agencies in the surrounding area in Henderson and elsewhere have flock cameras too. So you drive around, you might see them, and they...
do we know how many there are in Evansville at this point?
You know, when I was coming in here, I was trying to remember. I don't have an exact number off the top of my head because they've gotten installed kind of in stages. Mm-hmm. I can't recall off the top of my head how many are installed, but it's dozens. I think the EPD operates around 50 at a minimum. They might have more. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. Which kind of, if they install them in phases. And then the Vanderburgh County Sheriff's Office, I think they were looking at getting at least a couple dozen. Okay. So there's quite a few.
Yeah, it sounds like they've been growing in number.
Correct. Yeah. And so, so that's just kind of some background on on the flock cameras. And they log passing vehicles' license plates, but also information about what kind of vehicle it is, what color it is, mm-hmm. any identifying marks on the vehicle. And then because there's so many cameras, that you can track where those vehicles go and when.
Yeah, and you can piece together where it's been, where it might be going, and all that kind of thing. Now, do we know, and we talked about this a little bit before we came on the air, do we know if ICE perhaps used these surveillance cameras during the April 29th raids here in the Evansville area?
Yeah, so we have no information about that, and I think we should be clear, and we can get into this when we kind of talk about the data that we looked at. Mm-hmm. But local agencies here said that they didn't assist with that ICE operation. Mm-hmm. So the Evansville Police Department, Vanderburgh County Sheriff's Office, they did not assist in that. Neither agency says they have used flock cameras to conduct immigration-related searches. When we talk about how the cameras can be used for immigration enforcement, we're really talking about outside agencies and other jurisdictions running these nationwide searches. And so when it comes to that specific operation, we don't have any indication that the local flock cameras would have played a role in that. Flock doesn't sell its cameras directly to ICE. They have to have a local law enforcement agency basically search the flock system on their behalf, and so we don't have any indication that ICE somehow got an outside agency to query the local Evansville cameras before they came into town. There's just I haven't seen anything.
No evidence of that. Yeah. Well, okay. Let's talk a little more about the data. Basically, what did you discover? Based on the cameras here in Evansville and Vandenberg County.
Yeah. So coming into this, we have that data that was shared publicly of a flock audit from an Illinois police department.
Illinois.
And so that Illinois Police Department is basically an accounting of every nationwide search that would have gone out and tapped into a local department's flock cameras if they opt into sharing their data nationally. So the first thing that we did is we asked the Evansville Police Department and the Vandenberg County Sheriff's Office, do your local agencies opt into sharing your flock data nationally? And both the EPD and the VCSO said, yes, we are participants, and Flock calls it national lookup. It basically allows other flock agencies to search, for a record across the flock system, so across 6,000 plus different local flock systems, and it also gives the EPD and the Sheriff's Office the ability to conduct their own nationwide searches. Based on looking at this accounting from an Illinois agency of what these nationwide searches looked like, and that there were immigration-related searches. Once we knew that the Evansville Police Department and the Vandenberg County Sheriff's Office shared their data nationally, we had a pretty good idea that it would be very likely then that our local cameras would have been searched for immigration enforcement. To confirm that, we filed some records requests to get those same audit logs for the Sheriff's Office and the EPD, so we could drill down and really see the individual searches coming in. At this time, we have the Sheriff's Office's audit log. The police department is still working on getting those records to us. But by comparing the Illinois data that listed the reason for each search, immigration, ICE, etc., comparing that with the Sheriff's Office data that they provided with us, we could connect the dots basically and see that these searches were happening.
Wow. We are speaking with Houston Harwood of the Evansville Courier and Press. You can see this story and more at courierpress.com. We're talking about the use of license plate reading cameras known as flock cameras. That's a brand name. There are dozens, as we mentioned, spread around the Evansville area here. This is the Friday Wrap. I'm John Gibson. And Houston, we mentioned Sheriff Robinson, also Evansville Police Chief Smith. Robinson is a Democrat. Smith was appointed by a Democratic mayor. Is there any indication that politics gets involved in all? I mean, obviously, ICE is being led by a Republican administration. What have we learned there?
Yeah, that was something I was interested in when approaching this story, because the local agencies that operate flock cameras really have a lot of control over how they share their data. That's something that Flock, as a company, have said in response to concerns about these cameras' use for immigration enforcement. Their position is basically that if the Evansville Police Department and the Sheriff's Office aren't gung-ho immigration enforcers in their local communities, and they have some concerns that agencies like the Florida Highway Patrol or other jurisdictions that are very outspokenly assisting Trump in his immigration crackdown, if they have concerns that those agencies could tap into their local cameras, Flock gives them tools to basically limit how much data they share. So I was interested, what the local reaction would be, given that, as you mentioned, Robinson is a Democrat, and Phil Smith is appointed by a Democrat, and then also, Evansville City Council is majority, effectively controlled by Democrats, and they played a role in approving the funding for these cameras. But no, we really haven't seen that there are any, at least publicly expressed concerns from local officials here about these immigration-related searches or the potential that Evansville's cameras could be leveraged by immigration investigators outside of the city who operate under a different set of local policies than we do here in Evansville. They're just, when approached for comment on this and presented with the data, Robinson basically said, this is a really important tool for us, and we cooperate with the federal government, the ATF, with ICE, with Customs and Border Protection, and we're going to continue to do so. Phil Smith, effectively said the same thing.
That both agencies make everything available for all agencies.
Right. They're going to continue to make this local flock data available nationally. Phil Smith, when asked about the camera's potential role in immigration enforcement, he said, the EPD, quote, enforces state and local laws, not federal laws. But he added that, quote, we will not interfere with our federal partners as they execute their duties. So the local agencies here are kind of trying to walk this fine line between, we're not proactively investigating immigration-related offenses, but we're not going to, tamp down these national lookup privileges for our cameras if there are outside agencies who are proactively investigating immigration.
Yes, indeed. Well, we should get into the privacy part of all this. What do privacy advocates say about these cameras? What kind of concerns have we heard?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, just kind of based on the nature of this technology, privacy advocates are not a fan. They've raised concerns about technology like flock safety cameras for a long time. I think, the core concern for privacy advocates is just, one analogy I've heard is that, if you have dozens of flock cameras in a relatively small community like ours, how is that substantively different than the police department saying, hey, everybody needs to put a GPS tracker on their car, or, you need to tell us everywhere you're going? I think most people would bristle at that idea.
Right.
From law enforcement's perspective, they obviously say there's differences between a GPS tracker and tools like Flock, but privacy advocates, they say maybe the distinction isn't so big. And so there's Fourth Amendment concerns from privacy advocates because you don't need a warrant to basically try to construct somebody's driving history.
Right.
Because these photos are taken in public and they're of license plates, and there's no expectation of privacy in public. As it relates to immigration, though, something we heard from the ACLU and others is that, when local communities installed these systems, immigration enforcement was not really a concern that was raised or a justification for setting them up.
Right, not such a prominent thing as it has become now under the Trump administration.
Correct. And so, when City Council was looking at approving, a transfer of funds to set these up, or the Sheriff's Office looked at how successfully the city used its flock cameras and said, we want to get some too, the discussion, there really was no discussion about, well, could these cameras be tapped for, reasons that some community members might be a little bit uncomfortable with down the road.
Right.
And so, privacy advocates, their contention is that, once a local community takes it upon itself to set up a really powerful surveillance system like this that logs a lot of data and integrates that data in a kind of national system, that the local community, regardless of how they use the system and how responsively they use it, you lose a lot of control once you extend the data sharing to anyone and everyone.
Yeah. Now, as far as the police agencies, I guess they find these very valuable. As you mentioned, they don't consider them a privacy problem. Have you spoken with anyone from this company, Flock? That's the company that produces these surveillance cameras, right? I understand you tried to reach out to them. Is that right?
Yeah. The newspaper has spoken with Flock in the past when these cameras were first getting set up. We reached out to the company again with some questions about this story and did not hear back. That said, there's been a lot of local reporting on the intersection of these Flock cameras and immigration enforcement, and the company company CEO and co-founder Garrett Langley issued a statement on the topic in recent weeks. And his position was basically that, look, it's a choice for local agencies to cooperate with the federal government. Flock doesn't sell its tools to the federal government. They're focused on fighting local crime. But that, if a local agency in Florida or Texas wants to work with the Trump administration and do lookups on behalf of ICE, that's their prerogative. Langley said, in the United States, we have a system that puts much of the responsibility for public safety on local law enforcement, and that is who Flock is built to serve. And he says that, we work with sheriff's offices in red states, blue states, rural, urban communities, and, from the company's perspective, this is a local issue to be decided locally, how data is shared.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, if a local agency wants to restrict access from other agencies across the country, they can do that, correct? Correct.
And, the big point, though, from Noah Robinson, the sheriff, and Phil Smith, the police chief, and others, is that, by participating in this national lookup feature where, when you drive past a Flock camera in Evansville, a police officer in Washington State or Florida could potentially query your license plate if they were looking for you.
Yeah.
Their contention that why that's such an important feature is that also gives the EPD and the sheriff's office the ability to conduct their own searches that go beyond the confines of their systems here in Vanderburgh County and Evansville. So if they're we live in a tri-state area where people cross borders and state lines. Robinson pointed to they were able to bust a group of ATM burglars that were crossing jurisdictional lines through Flock cameras because that data is shared. Something that privacy advocates have said, though, is that their argument is that there should be a debate in local communities about the extent of that data sharing and how you weigh the benefits, the crime-fighting benefits of sharing data versus, do we put some constraints on it? For example, Flock gives tools to local departments could say, we'll share this data with every agency in Indiana, Illinois, and Kentucky, and then we'll take it on a case-by-case basis with agencies beyond that. Privacy advocates say that, maybe there should be some public debate about that.
Yeah. All right, that is Houston Harwood of the Evansville Courier and Press. You can see this story and all his stories at courierpress.com. Houston, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Always good to have you on the Friday Wrap.
Thank you for having me.